There is currently an outbreak of measles in the United States, with most cases in Texas, but also present in several other states as well, which has resulted in hundreds of cases and which has caused the death of two people. Two people so far, both of which were unvaccinated. These were the first measles deaths in the United States since 2015. While measles was declared eradicated in the United States in the year 2000, vaccination rates have since declined, and now most states are below the about 95% vaccination rate that is required for herd immunity. And this is why we are seeing measles outbreaks like what is happening now. I want to take the time to say that measles is a serious disease. It's not necessarily the deadliest disease there is. There are around 1 to 3 deaths per 1,000 measles cases, but measles is one of the most infectious diseases on planet Earth. An unvaccinated person coming into contact with a person with measles will have about a 90% chance of catching measles themselves. In addition, measles can cause a number of serious complications. For example, 1 in 5 unvaccinated people that are infected will need to be hospitalized. Measles can also cause other complications like ear infections, which sometimes result in hearing loss, pneumonia, or encephalitis, swelling of the brain that can cause brain damage. The measles virus also wreaks havoc on one's immune system. Measles causes something called immune amnesia. So your immune system has these cells called memory T cells and B cells, which can remember how to fight previous infections. These cells are why you gain immunity after getting sick. The measles virus is actually able to infect memory T cells and B cells, which causes these cells to be destroyed. Essentially, the measles wipes out immunities that you have gotten from previous infections, and it takes an average of 2 to 3 years to build up your immunity to what it was before the measles infections. So a lot of the danger of measles comes not from the infection itself, but the way it cripples your immune system's memory. There have even been studies looking at childhood mortality rates before and after the introduction of the measles vaccine. And before the measles vaccine, half of all childhood deaths from infectious disease could be linked to a measles infection. I'm saying all this because people seem to be downplaying the seriousness of measles. They're all like, my kids all had measles and they were all fine. Or in the case in this next story, most of my kids were fine. Remember how I said this outbreak has led to 2 deaths? One of the deaths was of a 6-year-old Texas girl, and this next story is about the girl's parents. Anti-vax mom whose daughter died from measles says disease wasn't that bad. From the Latin Times, the parents of an unvaccinated Texas child who died from measles appeared in a video formulated by an anti-vaccine advocacy group where they railed against vaccines, even saying the disease wasn't that bad. Following the child's death, the anti-vaccine advocacy group Children's Health Defense met with the children's parents, whose 4 other children also suffered from milder cases of the same illness, as reported by Mother Jones. During the interview, the young couple doubled down on their decision not to vaccinate their child even after her death. Hailing from the Mennonite community, they argued that if measles patients had access to untested treatments, the MMR vaccine would be entirely unnecessary. Absolutely do not take the MMR vaccine, said the mother. The measles wasn't that bad. The other children got over it pretty quickly. The parents described how their daughter developed a fever, respiratory problems, and the measles skin rash, how her breathing got worse and worse until she was struggling to breathe, how they took her to the hospital after which she was placed on a ventilator, and how she ultimately ended up dying. And they still said measles wasn't that bad. And I guess because their 4 other children had measles and they were fine, aside from their immune systems, which all now have immune amnesia. The parents in the previous story mentioned treatments for measles. The thing is, measles has no evidence-based treatments or cures. I mean, you can treat symptoms like administering a fever reducer, but there are no known treatments to treat the actual measles disease. What the parents were probably referring to was one of the many unproven treatments that are being spread by online misinformation, or even by the head of Health and Human Services, Robert Francis Kennedy Jr. RFK Jr. has been a prominent anti-vax activist in the past. He used to lead the Children's Health Defense, the organization from the last story, and he's even played a role in making a previous measles outbreak worse. He took an active role spreading vaccine misinformation about the MMR vaccine in the country of Samoa, even traveling to the island country in 2019 to meet with local anti-vax activists and even the Prime Minister of Samoa. Kennedy's anti-vax activism helped lead to a 2019 outbreak of measles in Samoa, which killed 83 people. So Kennedy is probably like one of the worst people to have any sort of power during a measles outbreak. Anyways, Kennedy has kind of softened his stance on the MMR vaccine. He said that the MMR vaccine was effective, he just stopped short of encouraging parents to actually vaccinate their children, saying that it was a personal choice. I guess that's marginally better than saying that childhood vaccination is equivalent to pedophilia in the Catholic Church, which is something that Kennedy has said in the past. Also, it's not a personal choice if you're not able to get the vaccine because you're allergic to it, or if you're a young child under 1 year old or something, and have to rely on other people getting vaccinated to protect you via herd immunity. But I guess that's besides the point. This is the point, this story. Remedies supported by Kennedy leave some measles patients more ill. From the New York Times. Doctors in West Texas are seeing measles patients whose illnesses have been complicated by an alternative therapy endorsed by vaccine skeptics, including Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the health secretary. Parents in Gaines County, Texas, the center of a raging measles outbreak, have increasingly turned to supplements and unproven treatments to protect their children, many of whom are unvaccinated against the virus. One of those supplements is cod liver oil containing vitamin A, which Mr. Kennedy has promoted as a near miraculous cure for measles. Physicians at Covenant Children's Hospital in Lubbock, Texas, saying that they've now treated a handful of unvaccinated children who were given so much vitamin A that they had signs of liver damage. Some of them had received unsafe doses of cod liver oil or other vitamin A supplements for several weeks in an attempt to prevent a measles infection, said Dr. Summer Davies, who cares for acutely ill children at the hospital. I had a patient that was sick for only a couple of days, 4 or 5 days, but had been taking it for like 3 weeks, Dr. Davies said. While doctors sometimes administer high doses of vitamin A in a hospital to manage severe measles, experts do not recommend taking it without physician supervision. Vitamin A is not an effective way to prevent measles. However, 2 doses of the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine are about 97% effective. I guess there's an irony in anti-vaxxers rejecting the safe and effective vaccine for vitamin A, which is neither safe nor effective at preventing measles. Well, that's where we're at right now. I mean, most of us will probably be fine, so that's good. Well, anyways, considering the current crisis, the Texas state government must be pretty busy passing some serious legislation. Well, let's see. The Lieutenant Governor of Texas, Dan Patrick, recently took to social media to express his frustration at a cut of meat. Dan Patrick posted online that he was working with the state Senate to rebrand the cut of meat known in the United States as the New York strip to the Texas strip. Here's a quote. Liberal New York shouldn't get the credit for our hard-working ranchers. We promote the Texas brand on everything made or grown in Texas because it benefits our economy and jobs. After session ends this summer, I might take a short cruise across the Gulf of America. And have a juicy, medium rare Texas strip. Do they even have the power to change the name of a cut of meat? Okay, well, what else is Texas up to? Texas GOP lawmaker introduces Furries Act after falling for the litter boxes in schools hoax. The Republican lawmaker Stan Gertis introduced Forbidding Lawful Representation of Roleplay in Education Act, or the Furries Act. Wait, where does the S come from? They didn't even get the awful acronym right. Anyways, the bill has also been endorsed by Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Side note, did you know that Greg Abbott was paralyzed because a tree fell on him when he was jogging, and he later won a lawsuit that awarded him millions of damages from the property owner? And then later, when he was a politician, he passed tort reform, which prevents Texans from winning compensations like what he received. Anyways, here's a quote from Greg Abbott. In some small rural sections of school districts in the state of Texas, they have in their schools what are called furries. Y'all know what that is? Abbott asked the crowd, which responded with a smattering of, yes. Kids go to school dressed up as cats with litter boxes in their classrooms, Abbott said. Abbott then used the non-existent scourges of furries pooping in school litter boxes as justification for dismantling public education in favor of voucher programs. Anyways, the bill would include banning, quote, using a litter box for the passing of stool, urine, or other human byproduct. So we've already talked about, this is because of the litter boxes in schools hoax, which has been propagated since at least 2021 and has been debunked time and time again. There are no reported instances of litter boxes actually being used in schools for children who identify as cats, and yet here we are in the year 2025 with politicians still believing in this conspiracy theory. You would actually have to have like no critical thinking skills to believe the litter boxes in schools, especially at this late date. The bill would also ban activities such as barking, meowing, hissing, or other animal noises that are not human speech, and licking oneself or others for the purpose of grooming or maintenance. I find this part pretty insane because children play pretend all the time. Oh, are you kids pretending to be animals? Well, I'm sorry. That's actually illegal, and you're going to jail, little Timmy. I could go on about how there's concerns that the overly broad language of this bill could ban school clubs related to tabletop role playing games, or how this bill is obviously rooted in anti trans bigotry. But the bill is probably not going to pass, so I don't want to spend too much time thinking about it. It's just, I'm so tired. Well, anyways, here's a fun story. We don't need to spend the whole episode in Texas. Here's a short story from near the city of Great Bend, Kansas. A babysitter was trying to help the child she was taking care of sleep after the child was complaining of a monster under the bed. So the babysitter was checking under the bed to show that there were no monsters. There's there's no such thing as monsters, little Timmy. Here, let me show you under the bed. Um, but then the babysitter found an actual man who was hiding under the bed. There was then an altercation where the babysitter and the child were knocked down and the suspect fled the scene. Well, good luck sleeping tonight, little Timmy. Little Timmy's had it rough this episode. Damn. Moving over to China, a 62-year-old man in China named Feng Dianwu, who has an intellectual disability, went viral in China after being live streamed by his neighbors 24/7 without his knowledge. From the South China Post. Feng Dianwu, 62, widely known as Brother Min, lives in a rural village in uh, Hangzhou, northern China's Hebei province. Sorry. Anyways, Feng, whose vocal cords and cognitive abilities were damaged in his youth by injuries he suffered while defending a friend, lives alone in a small decayed house after both his parents died. He reportedly survives by scavenging. Despite receiving a small government subsidy, locals say that most of it is stolen by delinquents, leaving him struggling financially. In 2022, a video filmed by a villager called Feng shows Feng scavenging cabbages at night, which went viral on mainland social media. In the clip, Feng looks confused and mumbles, holding two cabbages stolen from a neighbor. The video racked up over 1 million likes, and Feng became an internet sensation for his funny behavior. Soon, Feng and other villagers started regularly filming his daily life. Feng is slow to react and often unaware of people around him. Feng would sneak up and occasionally shout his name, Brother Min, startling him. Upset by the scare, sometimes Feng would grab a brick to chase the filmer, although he never actually hit anyone, except for one time when he accidentally struck himself. Some villagers even pretended to be police or judges, scaring Feng with threats of arrest. Soon cameras were set up everywhere, from the kitchen to his bed and even at the local shop. The videos on social media captured every aspect of Feng's daily routine, from feeding chickens to buying cigarettes and counting money in his bed. Most viewers assumed he had no idea he was being watched. Feng does not have a social media account, but the topics related to Brother Min have racked up more than 700 million views. So the people responsible for the online content claim that they used the money they made through Feng to improve Feng's life, but even if that's true, they are still exploiting a mentally disabled man and violating his privacy. You would think that if you told someone like 50 years ago about the internet, about having unlimited access to almost all the world's information instantly, they would probably think we were living in a utopia, but here we are. Anyways, I think the social media accounts associated with Feng have been shut down, and Feng was allegedly moved out of the village by some relatives, so I guess it's been resolved. How about this story? Man charged second time with attempting sex act with Metrolink seat. And that man's name? J.D. Vance. No, it was this guy. 2 times, and in less than a year, too. Man. And you wouldn't even guess it just by looking at him. Is that too mean? He looks like Piltdown Man. But why is this even a news story? I occasionally take public transit, and I've seen similar situations myself. You just have to accept that it's just what happens. But anyways, this guy is banned from trains now. We've had a lot of strange transport-related stories recently. There was the woman that gave birth on the New York subway in February, who it turns out had been missing for months. And there was also that man that set a homeless woman on fire on the subway, killing her. Why is public transit like a different plane of existence? I don't understand it. Okay, last article. Doctors note increases in cases of glue mistaken for eye drops. Yeah. Ow. Doctors with a Colorado hospital system are urging eye drop users to read labels carefully after noticing an uptick in cases of people accidentally putting glue in their eyes. Dr. Richard Davidson, an ophthalmologist with UC Health, which is headquartered in Aurora, said medical practitioners have noticed it has become surprisingly common for people to mistake nail glue or lash glue for eye drops. And we have various pictures of glue that come in containers similar to eye drops. I mean, you have to know like immediately that you messed up when your eyelids get glued shut and you're in pain. Well, uh, don't put glue in your eyes, everyone. And with that, that ends the episode.